During the freezing winters of Nazi-occupied Europe, deep in the mountains where resistance fighters hid from patrols, cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was deadly. These men and women, armed with little more than scavenged weapons and fierce determination, faced sub-zero temperatures in caves and forest bunkers with no access to firewood or coal. Lighting a fire meant risking discovery from enemy aircraft and patrols, yet without heat, frostbite and pneumonia claimed more fighters than bullets did. So, how did they survive? Through a forgotten field innovation that turned ordinary clay pots into silent, smokeless heaters. This wasn't folklore. It was practical wartime engineering that kept cells alive through the harshest winters of World War II. The war forced ingenuity where technology could not reach. The European resistance cells, whether in France, Poland or the Balkans, had to survive under conditions most modern armies couldn't endure. Hunted by the Gestapo and cut off from regular supplies, they relied entirely on what could be built, traded or stolen. Many groups hid in limestone caves, abandoned mine shafts or underground tunnels. The temperature inside rarely rose above freezing, and condensation made everything damp. Normal fires were impossible because smoke would give away their positions. Even small stoves risked showing up as heat signatures against cold terrain. Necessity gave rise to one of the simplest yet most effective survival heating systems of the war, the clay pot heater. It worked on a principle as old as human civilization: thermal mass and controlled convection. The resistance didn't invent this concept, but they refined it into a stealth heating solution adaptable to extreme conditions. Clay is a natural heat absorber. When heated slowly, it stores energy and releases it gradually, radiating warmth long after the original heat source is gone. Resistance engineers and partisans took advantage of this property using scavenged terracotta pots, metal tins, and small oil lamps. The method was straightforward yet ingenious. A small tin or can, often a reused ration can, was filled with a thick wick made from twisted cloth and soaked in cooking oil, animal fat or paraffin scavenged from lanterns. Over this small, low flame, they placed one or more inverted clay pots, separated by small stones or metal washers to allow a slow airflow. The inner pot trapped and amplified heat, while the outer pot absorbed and radiated it evenly through the cave. The setup could reach temperatures hot enough to warm several square meters without smoke or visible flame. Resistance members often built several of these small heaters and distributed them strategically through their shelters, allowing a steady ambient warmth to accumulate. The best part, it required no firewood and produced almost no light. From a distance, even with patrols nearby, it was virtually undetectable. Field manuals didn't exist for these devices. Knowledge spread by word of mouth. Fighters learned through trial and error, refining the method for efficiency. To build one, they began by finding unglazed terracotta pots, often flower pots from abandoned farms or villages. They preferred pots with drainage holes at the base, since those allowed the heat and gases to vent safely. A small platform made of rocks or bricks supported the oil container. On top of this, they inverted the first clay pot, resting it on 3 small stones. Then they stacked a larger pot over the first, creating an air chamber between them. The flame beneath heated the inner pot, which in turn transferred energy to the outer one. After about 10 minutes, the entire assembly would radiate gentle, consistent warmth. The inner temperature could reach up to 60 degrees Celsius, enough to dry socks, heat food, and prevent frostbite, all without giving off smoke. Maintenance was simple, but essential. The wick had to be trimmed regularly to prevent soot buildup, and the oil replenished daily. Resistance members sometimes blended animal fat with lamp oil to make a longer-burning fuel. Some cells went further, embedding their clay pot heaters into stone alcoves in cave walls to capture and store more heat overnight. Open fires were death traps. Even the faintest smoke trail could betray a resistance cell's position. Metal stoves, though efficient, made noise, consumed large amounts of fuel, and emitted strong odours detectable by nearby patrol dogs. The clay pot heater, however, produced minimal scent and no visible flame, making it a perfect survival solution. Thermodynamically, it was a triumph of simplicity. The porous clay surface allowed for steady convection, and the layered design reduced fuel consumption by up to 70% compared to open flames. In caves with stable airflow, the system maintained a survivable temperature for hours. Reports from Yugoslav and Polish resistance archives describe fighters surviving through entire blizzards underground, relying solely on these makeshift heaters. This technique wasn't limited to Europe either. Allied pilots shot down over frozen forests sometimes adopted it after learning from local partisans. Its success lay in its ability to use minimal materials, nothing more than clay, fat, and cloth, to turn the coldest cave into a livable shelter. This isn't just a historical curiosity. It's practical knowledge that still works. Modern survivalists, off-grid enthusiasts, and preppers have rediscovered the same principle. A simple clay pot heater can be built at home or in the wild using basic materials. To replicate it today, start with 2 terracotta pots, one smaller, one larger. Place a few candles or an oil lamp beneath the inverted smaller pot, using 3 metal spacers to lift it slightly for airflow. Then cover it with the larger pot, again separated by spacers. The clay absorbs the candle's heat and releases it evenly into the air. Within 15 minutes, you'll feel the difference. It won't heat a large cabin, but it can prevent hypothermia in an enclosed shelter, tent, or small room. In emergency situations, this method provides not just heat, but psychological comfort, the same sense of security resistance fighters depended on when isolated for weeks underground. It's a portable, renewable, and silent heating option that demands no electricity or heavy fuel, only resourcefulness. The story of the clay pot heater reminds us that wartime survival wasn't only about tactics or weapons. It was about adaptation. These small, improvised heaters were a triumph of human ingenuity under pressure. They symbolized the quiet resistance to both oppression and nature's cruelty. Today, when we study those who hid in the shadows of occupied Europe, we see how survival depended on learning to work with the elements, not against them. A handful of earth, shaped into a pot, became a tool of life, proving that intelligence and observation can replace technology when everything else fails. So, the next time you light a fire or feel the warmth of a heater, think of those silent caves where men and women survived against all odds, using nothing more than clay and courage. The clay pot heater wasn't just a survival hack, It was a lifeline, a testament to resilience, born out of desperation. If this story deepened your respect for the forgotten ingenuity of World War II's unsung heroes, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Valor, share this video with fellow history buffs, and help keep these lessons of survival and creativity alive. Because history's true power lies not just in remembering what was fought, but how people endured to see freedom again.